I think so.
Is there sunscreen
Travis.
on the job site or in the work van?
No.
Okay, there used to be. I'll make sure I put it back or get some.
I got some. I just don't know where it is. I gotta find it.
It's fine. I'll just do like I have always done and keep a Costco pack in the work van for you guys.
Travis, he's so cute.
Yeah, we saved him.
Oh.
Where? There he is.
Yeah, his name is Tank. He's a cuddle bug.
Oh my gosh, he's so cute. I love it.
Oh.
He's got like this boo-boo lip, and it's, oh God, it's funnier than hell.
I swear, we need a pet too.
Yeah, he cracks me up.
So cute.
Yeah. Red nose.
All right, well, I don't want to make Civic super long today because there's a lot that's going on in the world, and I wanted to kind of debrief a little bit. Some people were saying that they're, I guess, just not really sure what's going on, and that's totally understandable. There's a lot happening. I mean, it even made its way into Spokane a couple of nights ago, if any of you guys were there at the riot that went on. But there have been protests and riots, and there's still a pandemic going on. There's a lot that government officials are saying and doing, and I just kind of wanted to debrief and explain a lot of it for those of you that are just not really sure what's happening and why all this is happening. And I wanted to answer questions if you guys had them. I'm not an expert on the topic, so I can't promise you that I'm going to have a perfect answer for everything, but I do, I've been educating myself on what's been going on, and I want to be able to share that with you guys. Just a couple disclaimers. This is a really controversial topic that's been going on right now, and it's really polarizing, which means there's people on very far ends of the spectrum on whether they agree with what's going on or whether they don't agree with what's going on. And so to explain this, it's hard to not have a bias when I explain this, because I obviously lie on one of those polls and I have my own opinions about it, and it's hard to not explain this without a bias. So I'm gonna tell you right now, I probably am gonna have a bias when we talk about this, just because the way that I am going to explain this to you, it just kind of falls on the end that of my beliefs. So I want to apologize for that. Alex, before he wasn't feeling well, he said he was going to be here and play devil's advocate for me so that I didn't fall too far into my biases, but he's not here, so I'm going to have to do that to myself.
I can try. Try.
Thank you, Brady. I appreciate it. So I wanted to start out just by kind of giving that disclaimer and also letting you guys know that this is obviously a very controversial subject, and it is race related. That's what all of these protests are about. It's about race. And so I want to have a really, really good discussion. But if there are any sort of racially charged comments that happen here, or if there are any sort of discriminating comments, I'm going to go ahead and remove you guys from the chat. So I just want to warn you guys about that. This is not a place where we're going to speak ill of others. We're going to put each other down. And I don't think that that would happen with you guys. I just wanted to make that disclaimer, is that if this kind of goes south, I'm going to remove you from the chat if that's what it takes. So I just wanted to give that disclaimer. We're just going to talk about the facts right now, and maybe try our best not to give opinions about other people or put anybody down. Does that make sense? Cool. Awesome. So first off, I wanted to start out by saying, or just by asking you guys what you want to know. I want to start out with what you guys know and what you guys don't know, and kind of use it as a jumping off point to explain what's been going on. So do you guys have questions about what's been happening in the world in the last week?
Nothing bad's happening.
In regards to the protests and the riots and why they're happening?
A little bit.
Okay. Do you have a specific question about it?
No, not really. I mean, I'm just, it's just like, why?
Cool. Why? Is that a general consensus for people? Like, why? Like, what the heck's going on?
Okay, well, all right. I guess I kind of have questions.
Okay.
So there was a protest, right? There's a protest for a good reason, for George Floyd, right? That's his name?
Yep.
Yes, exactly. So there's a peaceful protest. And then you got people who go and break into the Nike store. They ain't acting any better than
Nope.
any people. They're just, okay, well, how people think is like they'll look into the stereotype and they'll be, exactly, you know what I mean?
It's all
They're
as
acting.
self-gain. They knew that if they did that,
Yeah.
it was going to be blamed on the protest. That's why
Yeah,
they did
exactly.
Hey, you know what's crazy about that? Okay, I was right
There's
next
another
to the
one
Nike.
yesterday.
Yep. I was right next to the Nike store, and you know those Proud Boys or whatever the hell they are?
Yeah.
One of
Yeah.
them, I swear to God on my mom's life, came up to me. He was a white boy, you know, you could tell he was, you know what I mean? He ran
Yeah.
up to me with 2 pairs of shoes and tried giving them to me. And I was like, fuck no. I was like, bro,
Really?
you're not going to try to get me crap. He ran up
Oh,
and
hell no.
2 pairs of shoes in my hands, and I was like, fuck no.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is very, very no bueno.
Crazy.
That's why
really
they put that
interesting.
curfew out. Is because they're trying to figure out who the hell is, you know what I'm saying, actually protesting and who's just trying to do this for self-gain.
No, I dropped them. I ran because everyone was running because they were getting tear gas and shit.
Good. I'm glad you didn't take them. That was a good
No,
call. on your
I
end.
threw them.
Yeah, that was though, man.
I threw them hoes, bro.
Good.
My bad.
That's a really good jumping off point, and I'm glad you guys were talking about that. So let's kind of start from the beginning about where this started. Isaiah was right. He just brought up the name George Floyd. So if you don't know that name, that's the name of a Black man who was forcibly removed from his car by 4 police officers. And then they proceeded to lay him face down on the ground and kneel on his neck for, they said it was like 8 or 9 minutes until he couldn't breathe, and then he ended up dying while he was being pinned down by the police. And so this was almost 2 weeks ago, and this sparked the chaos that you see right now because people are outraged that a police officer killed a Black man, basically. I mean, that's exactly what happened. He kneeled on his neck until he died. So a police officer killed this man.
And
with-
continued to kneel on his neck after he was dead.
Yeah, he stopped talking and breathing around the 4 or 5 minute mark, but he continued to kneel on his neck at that point. And so people are outraged that this happened, and they're saying justice for George Floyd because it wasn't until people started making this sort of outcry about it that they even considered charging the police officers with criminal charges because of this. And now the main police officer that you see kneeling on his neck was charged with 3rd-degree murder and 2nd-degree manslaughter. But it's not enough for people now. It's not a big enough charge. I mean, 3rd-degree, 2nd-degree manslaughter, I mean, people were comparing it to like, that's when you push somebody and they accidentally hit their head and die. This
They
is more
upgraded it.
intentional. Oh, did they?
They upgraded it to 1st-degree murder because the autopsy reports came back unquestionably that his cause of death was asphyxiation by the police officer, not anything underlying.
See, I'm glad you're here. I hadn't heard that they upgraded the charge yet.
Didn't they try to hide the autopsy, like the state did an autopsy and then the family was like, no, fuck that, you guys are liars, we're gonna go do our own private autopsy?
Yes, Travis. Yep.
And
You're right. The first autopsy that came out said it was most likely because he had an underlying heart condition that he died. Which apparently anybody could have any, you know, if you get, okay, I'm not going to get into it. I can compare that to a lot of things and then it gets bad. But yeah, that was the first autopsy and the family was like, I just disagree. And they got a private autopsy and they said, yeah, it was asphyxiation. So Travis, good job on that. And so now that autopsy came out, Randy, thank you for telling me that. I didn't realize that they did upgrade his charge to 1st-degree murder now because of that autopsy. So this is why people are outcrying. However, there's been a lot of other names that have been thrown out there. And I don't know if you've seen kind of the phrase that's been going around, but George Floyd was the straw that broke the camel's back in a history of police brutality against Black people and people of color. And so that's what these protests are about. These protests are mainly protesting police brutality, especially on Black people and people of color, because there's a history of this. There are a lot of names that have been thrown out there of really similar situations of police officers killing Black people. Trayvon Martin is a good example. I think he was the one that had the Skittles in his hand. Was that right?
You all
did he
think
have-
this is about black
Wanted
people
to
and
say-
white
Out of
people hating
everyone,
black people?
out of everyone that I saw down at the protest, it was all about Black Lives Matter, which is totally understandable. But there was one person out of all the people that I saw that said, all lives matter, but right now Black lives are what we're focusing on. And that one I liked more than anything because I am myself a victim of police brutality. I've been body slammed. I've been dealt dirty, you know, and personally, I mean, yes, there are cases where, you know, some people get it worse and shit like that. But I don't know. I think that it's not just black people. Like, I've seen dudes get beat up and all sorts of stuff. You know, it is messed up because, you know, colored people are the first ones to get profiled. They're the ones that always, it is fucked up. You know, and I agree with it, but I believe that all lives matter, not just, you know what I'm saying? I think that's what they should say more than anyone.
Sure.
My
Okay.
opinion.
So let me put this out there. So
Because I
nobody's
got
saying,
by a cop and nobody did nothing about that, and I didn't do nothing, and a bunch of cops just showed up and threw me on the ground and laid their legs on the back of my legs, and the world ain't talking about that.
Yeah, but
Well,
it's been happening to black people a lot more than it's been happening to white people.
It's starting, if that makes
Correct.
sense. This is
That-
only the beginning of it, if I feel
I'm
like.
just gonna get out of this conversation because I don't freaking give a shit about this.
That's unfortunate, Allie, but I'm not going to force you to stay in it. I wish that you did.
It's unfortunate for you guys too. Sorry about you guys.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to force you to be in the conversation, but I do hope that you listen to other people's, I guess, ideas that they have on it, just like we would listen to yours. Brandy, what were you going to say?
Doing is hearing all this crap every day.
Mhm.
well, that's because it's a big issue.
Dude, I just watched a
Really big
3-hour video on all the police brutalities.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a really
trust
big
me,
issue.
it's bad, bro.
It's not
Yeah, we're
just-
all about to die because of it.
It's not just white, colored people, you know.
Yeah,
It's,
no, of course not.
it's
But
everyone,
I'm just
dude.
saying it's, you know.
Brandy, what
it's
were you going to
definitely
say?
I was gonna make the point that I think Travis made was that yes, all people, white, black, African or Native American, you know, all people, women can experience police brutality.
Of course.
The issue is the disproportionate rate that the African American community experiences it,
Yeah.
and at what point it becomes acted upon, right? Like a person of color doing nothing is treated much more aggressively than any other
I've seen it firsthand.
white person, right? Yes, they may overreact with power on a white person, a white female like you, Allie, right? But 10 times or 9 times out of 10, it's because the white person's behavior warrants an escalated response. People of color don't get that option. They don't get to do anything except for lay down on the ground, and then they still die.
Mhm.
That's the issue.
Yeah, so the reason why George Floyd was being forcibly removed from his car by police is because they believed that he had a forfeit money. He got a forfeit $20 bill, which is a fake $20 bill.
Really?
The store said, this is not a real bill. They called the police saying, oh, he's trying to use fake money. And they came running and they're like, oh my God, this man is using fake money. Do you think that using fake money should warrant his death?
No. Do they
Right.
even have proof it was fake money?
I have not seen them actually find proof. That might be a thing. I think
That's
the
what
proof,
I didn't know.
I think the finding proof of fake money is unimportant now because even if they did find fake money, should it have led to his death? That is what people are fighting for at this point. There are not many names of white people that are out there that have died by police force because of a nonviolent crime, right? This is a nonviolent crime. If he had forfeit money, okay, fine him, make him be in jail for a while, but I don't think it warranted his death, and a lot of people don't think it warranted his death. If you do think that warranted his death, I think that's part of the opinion as well, is that people are like, where do you side on what the response of a criminal action should be? I think that's where a lot of this is stemming from as well. But in general, we're seeing a lot of people are agreeing that, well, that shouldn't have warranted his death just because he had fake money on him. You'll also see a lot of comparison photos where there's a photo of, you know, a white person that's holding an assault rifle up to the cop, and the cop is like doing de-escalation techniques rather than, you know, shooting at him back or holding a gun at him back. When it's like, if, you know, we see black men who have a phone in their hand, it's not even a gun, and they get shot for just thinking that that they had a phone in their hand. The police just thought that they had a gun in their hand instead of a phone, and they get shot for it. So we're looking at, people are outraged because of the difference that we see in the way that black people are treated by police rather than white people. And this is not at all saying that white people do not experience police brutality, because like Allie's got a great example. She has been unnecessarily thrown to the ground, and, you know, she's been.
That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that this is just totally bullcrap, and that is the best word to say it. Like, Corona,
You have a reason why you feel that way about it, Allie?
have all the reasons in the world to feel this way, because all this stuff that everybody's tripping about is a bunch of crap. They all should just chill out and probably
So why
smoke
do you
No
why
one's
do you
gonna
feel that
chill
way,
out
Allie?
when a cop laid his neck on a black man and watched him die.
Look at it this way. Hey, look at it this way. If we didn't stand up for what we believed in, how would anyone know
Literally.
how to go about business? You know what I'm saying? Like, if we didn't know what you believed in or how you went about certain things, how would we know who you are? Like, I don't know.
And I'm not about to share what I think, because all you guys think the same thing.
No, I mean,
Well, that's the point of the class, is to talk about our different opinions.
Yeah, I would love to hear what you have to say. It's not that I don't care what you have to say or anything like that. Like, I feel, you know, what your opinion matters to me. You know, everybody's opinion in this group chat matters to me.
Bailey, were you about to say something? I saw you unmute for a second.
No, I'm just gonna stay quiet.
Okay. That's all right too. This is really, really, really hard stuff to talk about. And if it makes you uncomfortable, that's the reason, like, that's the purpose. It should make people uncomfortable. It should be hard to talk about. Like, as a white person, I experience enormous amount of privilege. I am a white female. I've never, you know, encountered the police really at all, let alone in a forceful way. And there's a lot of privilege in that. If I get pulled over by the police, I worry about getting a ticket. I don't worry about getting killed that day. And that's because I'm white. And it doesn't mean that white people don't have hard lives and don't experience tough things. It just means that race is not one of the things that makes their life harder, right?
Yes.
And so that's what these protests are for. These protests are to advocate for Black people, advocate for Black people's voices, and to protest police brutality against Black people.
Didn't that officer that killed that guy, didn't he have like a history of like 16 or 18 complaints or something like that?
No, he's
Had
killed
other
other
charges against him. He
Yeah,
had
he's
other
killed
charges
other-
against him.
And then like 16 of them, they just magically disappeared. He didn't get in trouble, nothing. Like,
Or they
come
were
on now.
internally investigated, which just
no. What I believe is, if you take an oath to protect the citizens and stuff like that, and you break a law that big, you know what I'm saying, murdering somebody for nothing, and you break a law that big, and you have a badge on your chest, I feel like the punishment should be death. That's just me.
Public service. You know what I mean? Like
you swore an oath. You broke that oath. You know, there's no punishment. The punishment is death. That's just me. But, you know, I don't know. I feel like a lot of things would be more solved that way. You know,
you're not alone in that. Yeah, you're not alone in that thinking.
You know, you don't want to follow the rules. You want to hurt people. You want to be disgusting. You want to be whatever. Then death is what it is, dude.
That's what I don't get. Like, they're still fine with this. You know, so most of the police officers, dude, I was seeing most of these police officers have killed people and gotten away with it. You know what I mean?
Smiling.
And it's like, how are you able to go to sleep at night knowing you just fucking, you just blasted someone with 12 bullets in the chest? You know what I mean? I don't get how you can be that evil and be able to fucking sleep at night. I don't know.
You guys hear about Rambo from Coeur d'Alene?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's my homie. I grew up with that kid.
Hey, he's still
I
locked
went
up
to kindergarten with that kid. We played football on the field together, and my homie got shot 16, 17 times. All
And lost
because
his
he fired
legs.
a warning shot.
Yep,
When?
lost his legs.
They didn't even give him the, like, that's just, I don't know. 16.
When did that happen?
Like
That was
2
like
months ago, 3 months ago.
Yeah, 3 months ago. My homie lost his legs, dude, from the waist down. They shot
Yeah,
him
he got shot
18
16 times.
Wow.
2 of the bullets were skimmers. 2 of the bullets were, 16 of them went into his legs. And you look it up. It's all about, he's all in jail. He's suing them for police brutality. It's about Coeur d'Alene. It happened about 3-4 months ago, I want to say.
You guys didn't hear about that?
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of faded away. You know, you don't hear about it much, you know, and that's another thing that's making me mad is it's like, yo, if you all want to bring up all this shit about brutality and stuff, why bring up this one incident? Bring up past shit to back your shit up. I don't know. I mean,
Well, I
there's
think
the argument of past, you know.
I think
past,
they are. I think they have brought it up in a couple of places that I've seen where they talk about the other people, like Lily brought up Trayvon Martin.
Yeah.
And then there was, I can't remember his name right now.
Taylor.
Yeah, or the guy that they killed because he stole a pack of cigarettes. Do you remember that? It was in New York.
Vaguely. That rings a bell.
And so, I mean, they are bringing it up. But then there's also the issue of, you know, I guess systematically, if you look at
how to deal with it.
Or community-wise, like, okay, so there was one officer with his knee on the guy's neck, right? Yeah. And then there were 3 other officers standing there. Why was that?
Doing nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's, I mean, that's where I think it points to this is definitely a bigger community or even just nationwide.
I get what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's more, there are so many great police officers out there that abide by the do no harm. They take their oath and they live by it, and they are great police officers. And I think that we're getting in the weeds talking about good cops versus bad cops, and there are no bad cops, there are no good cops, and it's like absolutely there are some bad cops and there are some great cops, but we are talking systemically. We are talking that over the course of hundreds of years, Black people have been oppressed by the system that is still in place. And this system is enforced by police officers, and over and over and over again, we are seeing police officers using their power against Black people, and nobody's doing anything about it. Sure, that was a really bad cop that did that, and he has other charges that he obviously sucks. Nobody disagrees that he sucks as a police officer, right? And that he should go to jail for what he's done. But there are lots of other police officers that, like Brainy just said, the 3 that stood there and watched him and didn't say anything about it. And now they were trying to kind of cover up the fact that it really was a murder by saying, oh, he had heart problems. So systemically, we're trying to back up this police officer instead of being like, no, this man was murdered. What are we going to do about it? So it's a bigger issue than a few bad cops, because it continues to happen and they're not doing anything to change the system that's in place. And that's what people are fighting for. That's what people are protesting for, change the system.
That makes sense.
And I think systemically too, like you hear a lot of people who come from a place of privilege, who are white males, right? Who don't necessarily recognize their privilege. And you hear over and over people say, I didn't own slaves. My family didn't own slaves. I didn't own slaves. There haven't been slaves for this long. Get over it. Well, okay. Now there's just a different form. There's just a different way of oppressing people who are minorities.
Yes.
And maybe we don't indenture servants and they live under our control, but in a way they do.
Because we still live in a society where white people benefit more than Black people from the society that we live in. And we see it, a great example just happens to be police brutality against Black people, right? A white person simply is less likely to face the same level of police brutality than Black people based on real statistical facts, right? We see that based on the numbers that are shown.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So yeah, you'll see. I hear a lot of people say it's not my issue. Take it up with my ancestors because I don't own slaves. Slaves aren't a thing anymore. Brandon, I'm glad you brought that up. But the system still benefits you as a white person. The system still prefers you as a white person. That's what we're trying to change.
If somebody has an advantage, by definition, that means others are at a disadvantage.
Can I throw an idea out there?
Yes, please, Rachel.
Sure can.
So
I'd
if
love
you
to
think
hear.
about how, well, like in Spokane, for example, if you are homeless or if you have a mental illness situation or drug addiction in which you are out in the community, the first response most people in our community are going to do is they're going to call the police, correct? And so police get called, and in any, you know, your main entry into any kind of system that might help you down the road starts with you getting a record, right? A criminal record. So if you're substantially more apt to get arrested because of your skin color, then your chances of getting out from under that system is already really hard. So, and we all know that starting out with having a record sets you behind already. Like, now try to get a job, now try to get housing, now try to, so overwhelmingly the statistics show that African American men are locked up more than anyone else. And if you're already starting behind the starting line with a record, whether you've done something right or wrong, it's going to set you back so far, right? And historically, someone white and someone black getting the same charge, the white person tends to get a lighter charge, a lighter sentence, gets out earlier. African American person tends to stay in longer. So you're already having a system that sets you back further from the starting line, and now they're trying to get housing, now they're trying to get a job and do things, and they've got this record following them. And so it's already a system set up to make it hard no matter what. Like, if we look at someone and we're like, great, so you served your time, go get a job, go get housing, be an upstanding citizen. And I think it's hard for people to realize that if almost everyone in your community is challenged with this stigma of everyone's a criminal and everyone, but it's maybe not that they're actual criminals, it's just that they're being targeted for that. An interesting thought I read somewhere was that maybe instead of having police be your first go-to response for issues that aren't violent crimes, that we should have agencies that are deploying people like social workers or mental health counselors, or, you know, housing people are actually deployed, like out on the streets to help work with these systems and issues, so that it's not a record you're getting. You're not getting locked up first before you can get help, but you can actually get help and be treated like a human before being put into the system. So I think overall there's a pervasive feeling in America, not just Spokane, of we're going to grow jails because somehow that changes behavior and keeps us safe. But it's something to think about. Does that really work? Does it work to just lock a bunch of people up, but not provide them with actual services?
Because they can't. I said usually they get out and reoffend because they can't get anywhere.
Right.
You know, because of the system being so hard.
Right.
Or they can't get a job because a criminal record keeps you from getting a job.
Yeah, so they have to go rob that gas station. I know plenty of dudes that got out and couldn't get a job and couldn't do whatever because of their fucking record. And, you know, like, it's understandable, but, like, at the same time, like, I don't know. Both sides are understandable, if that makes sense.
Yep. And that's what makes it so hard.
Yeah. That was a really tangible way to say that, Rachel. I appreciate that. It was definitely more, at least tangible for our community to think about that. Oh, yeah, police are called often. And if you're black, you're just statistically more likely to be arrested on that spot than if you're white. And all of a sudden you have a record and then now you can't get out of it. So yeah, that was a really good way to explain that. I like that.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears off of this to the other really controversial part of this that you guys brought up to begin with, which is the breaking windows and looting and taking things from the stores. Because I think a lot of people are, I guess, focusing on that, when in reality, most of the time it had nothing to do with the protests. So I want to be able to kind of separate that, and I don't want you to, in your mind, negate the protest because of the breaking and the stealing. Because the protests, I think, have made a really big impact in the last week. We are a part of a history book. We have written pages in history books in the last week, which is kind of incredible in a lot of ways. But the progress that we have made in the last week in terms of the awareness that we've made, the Black Lives Matter movement, I don't want that to be negated because people are upset about the looting and the breaking windows, which is obviously an issue, and I understand why people are upset by it. But like we saw in Spokane, Cam, you brought it up, the Proud Boys, it appears in almost every situation that the smashing of the windows and the causing havoc and lighting things on fire
They want this to
happened
happen.
after the protests were done and had to do with people who were not there for the protest. So if you were really dead set on that, I want you to remember that. In the rare instances that it was people that are part of the protest that went and stole things, I think the Target in Minneapolis is a good example. Technically, those people were a part of the protest. But if you know the reason why they went and stole and went and took things from the store, it would make more sense to you. The Target right there was refusing to sell the milk after they were tear gassed. And if you pour milk on your face, it helps. If you've been tear gassed, helps your eyes and all that. And so they went and they stole it. And they started stealing other stuff because they said Target's not selling us milk to help with our tear gas situation. And so they went and they stole stuff. And I'm not saying that you should go and steal things to get your point across. But I think we are prioritizing the wrong thing. And rather than saying, oh, you know, it really sucks that guy died, but we need to stop stealing stuff. I think we need to reprioritize that and say, hey, it really sucks that things got stolen, but a man died, and we should be mad about that, right? I think we need to switch the narrative and switch the perspective that we see it, because we need to focus on what really matters right now, and people are fighting for their lives, quite literally. But in general, in the grand scheme of things, it has mainly been people that came in after the protests that just wanted an excuse to break stuff and light stuff on fire and cause havoc.
Well, and in general, those people have been people who want to, like Cam was saying, make it look like
yes, it
was a certain population of folks, right? And so they've come in, they want to fragment the community that's getting power and or recognition based on a peaceful protest or looking at the actual topics that matter. And so they're trying to distract from that by cheapening what had happened by making it look like those same people are doing this.
Yeah. Yep. Their goal is to make you be mad at the protesters because they don't want the Black Lives Matter movement to move forward. So don't give them what they want. Be mad at them for breaking things and don't be mad at the protesters. So it's not about that. So many people went to peacefully protest. Spokane was an awesome, current, right here in front of our face example. The protest lasted like 5 hours. It was great. It was peaceful. Police kneeled. It was awesome. Everybody left, and then people came in and started breaking stuff. A whole new group of people. And the Spokane Police Department made that statement that it was not the protest. They made it clear not to be upset with protesters because they saw that it was a new group that came in and tried to blame it on the protest. So I just wanted to make that super clear, and please focus on the reason why we're protesting, and ignore the people that are stealing stuff, because that's not what we're focusing on right now. They'll rebuild. Nike's a huge, we're worried about the Nike store. Nike's going to be fine. I promise. They'll make sure their people get paid. They've got plenty of stuff to, it's not like they stole from a couple of small businesses that are barely making it. Nike's going to be okay. I promise.
That same group that came into Spokane went to Coeur d'Alene the next day.
Yeah, they tried to, but my boys in Coeur d'Alene.
They did try. They were. I think they probably were ready for it.
Yeah,
knowing it was so close.
I grew up there. I grew up shooting guns. All my neighbors had guns. Like, it was funny. I went down there and I saw all the people I knew, and everyone was locked and loaded. And it was, I felt more comfortable there than anything. I was like, yep.
Right. They went to protect their people, which is pretty cool. And it's cool to see police officers kneeling down. I know some people are upset because police officers kneeled for the photo op and then they stood back up and tear gas people. And so I know that there's a lot of also wanting to make themselves look really good, but let's just focus on the movement. Support Black creators and Black artists and Black owned businesses. I mean, this is really a movement to support Black people and people of color. And that's the whole point of all of it. So if you take anything away from today, support Black people and support their businesses, support their creations. That's all people are asking for. Yep.
So some video of this person talking, and it was saying about how, like, back in the day when police were like first created and all that stuff, that they were created to control colored people. You know, like the Black Panthers or whatever you call them or whatever. I don't know. It was all about controlling people, and it just kept going from there.
Yeah, I've seen that theory. I've seen that theory that police were initially created in order to make sure Black people are in line or whatever. And I don't know. That's one of those things that I don't want to answer on because I don't have enough information about that. And when police were created to give you a good answer on that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if that was one of their main goals. If you think about it, the civil rights movement was in the 60s. I mean, that was in our lifetime. That was our parents' generation, right? My parents were born in the 60s. So this was not like it was, years ago that we can't even remember anymore. I mean, the civil rights movement was in this lifetime. It was in generations that are still alive and well today. And before that, we still had segregated schools. We still had, you were allowed to discriminate on who you took for a job, on what, who got to go to what school based on their people's skin color. So this is not a forever ago thing. It is still such a recent issue, and we're still fighting the ways that our systems are in place now, because they put Black people and people of color at a disadvantage. It's just fact that this happens. So we're trying to change it. These protests are what we're trying to do. We're trying to change it. They had 6 or 7 days of protests with Martin Luther King Jr. And then they created some of the laws that are in place now that keep you from discriminating against people of color. So it works. I mean, people have these movements and they get stuff done and they get laws put into place, and that's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to change the system. So, please focus on that when you hear about this. If you hear other people talking about it, I hope that you can use some of the knowledge that you heard today to have good conversations about it. You don't have to agree with me. I told you this was going to be a very biased situation because the only way I can explain it is from my point of view, which has a lot of bias in it. So
when it comes to that law that you said like is discriminating on another race, like, does that go for every race or is it just for Black people and like natives and all them?
It's every race.
Every race.
It's a law that prevents you from discriminating against people of color
I thought so.
in jobs, in schools.
Question, but
Good question, though. It definitely starts with people who are Black in this movement, right? I mean, that Martin Luther King Jr., it's not saying other people of color are not oppressed, because that's definitely the case. But where these movements typically start, like with Martin Luther King Jr. and with the Black Lives Matter movement. So yeah, they're trying to get stuff done. They're trying to change the world. They're trying to change the way that we run things. People all over the world protested this week. I mean, you saw hundreds of thousands of people out in Paris and in Germany and in Japan. I mean, people made history this week, man. I swear, we're writing pages in a history textbook right now, and it's pretty fascinating to watch. And I hope that kind of excites you, because you guys are a part of the generation that gets to impact this the most. So.
The other thing I would say, and it kind of came up in my other meeting this morning, is Spokane has historically been such a white community, right?
Oh yeah.
We haven't had a minority population, much to speak of, and I think it is difficult for people whose life or whose view has been shaped around what happens to minority populations because of Spokane, right? So like, you probably don't know that many people of color who have had or experienced horrible things, but if you look in the bigger cities, it's something that happens every day
Right.
at an astronomical rate as compared to Spokane. So it's, I think, hard for some of us to understand that that is a thing when it's not super
thing.
We
prevalent
don't
in our
physically see
community.
it here in Washington.
Right. And
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily impact our family or friends on a daily basis. Some of you, certainly it does.
Yeah.
But the majority of us, it doesn't. And I will say, up until working at the Next Gen Zone and with all of you guys, I was totally unaware of all of those different things and the things that each and every one of people, you guys of color, especially the males of color, experience every day.
Yes.
Yep.
So it is something that is going to become more and more in people's faces. I mean, it's been like even to the point where I would never have thought about it, but I went and bought a pair of boots, I think, with Ronnie. And we were walking out of Walmart and I had the receipt because I bought them from work and he had the bag. And I kept walking and they stopped him wanting to know where his receipt was.
Damn.
Wow.
Right? So, I mean, it's stuff like that
It is.
you wouldn't necessarily be aware of as a person, as a white person.
I've been stopped maybe once at Walmart to ask where my receipt was. They look at me and they let me walk out all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. And I bet
So,
that's
I mean,
not the case for him.
it's things like that that you wouldn't necessarily be aware of, right? Because if you're not a person of color, you're not experiencing them. And if you're not with a person of color, you're not aware of it, right? And then you hear of it as a story and it's easier to dismiss as, oh, well, are you sure that really happened? I think that might just be you being overly sensitive. No, it really happens.
Yeah. You just don't see it.
Yep, or experience it.
Yeah. Another thing to think about is that, like, maybe in Spokane, we don't see it as prevalently, but like cities, I know that there's been studies done and movements moved in, like in Chicago. And so, you know, years ago, banks would do a thing where they redline a district. So this district is called Redline and it's mostly low income neighborhood. And so anyone who lives in that zip code, they can't get a mortgage. They can't get loans.
What?
And it was completely legal to be biased that way.
Mm-hmm.
If the majority lives in that neighborhood, it's going to be people of color and African Americans. So
Yep.
already by your zip code, you're not allowed to advance in and do whatever, you know, the American dream, right? Get a loan, get a mortgage, and get out of that zip code. So that may not be something that happens maybe that we see here in Spokane, but that's definitely happening in the bigger cities. And that was happening well into the 80s and 90s.
Totally.
So
Oh, yeah.
that's not very far in our rearview mirror, right? I mean,
Nope.
there's neighborhoods in Portland that had signed on in their charters that wouldn't allow African Americans to buy a home in that neighborhood. And that's actually still on their charters today. They don't follow that anymore, but it's written in. And so if you think about it, if you couldn't even get a loan or buy a home in a different neighborhood, you can't get out of where you're at. So it's overarching kind of oppression that, you know, you might look at it, or someone, not you personally, but I personally may look at it and say, well, just move out of that crappy neighborhood, right? Do something different, change your life. And there's just so many obstacles to do that it's not really possible. And
Right.
years and years and years of that happening, you can also start to understand why people can get very angry and upset by this and feel like there's no way out. And if there's no way out, why even try? And so, I mean, there's a lot of that happening that needs to change at a much higher level in our financial institutions and neighborhoods and things like that too. So
Definitely.
Lily, have we done anything on institutional racism?
We haven't.
That might be a good place to go from here so that it kind of broadens the, like, it doesn't have to be specific to police brutality or whatever, but there are all these systems in the infrastructure that are set up to kind of continue to oppress certain populations and minority groups.
I like that. I think that's a good place to start. Because it's so hard because, like I was saying, this was going to be biased specifically because the opinion is whether or not this issue exists. That's where the sides of the spectrum. You're either over here and you say, yes, this issue exists and I want to fight against it. You're saying it doesn't exist.
Right.
And I don't believe in it. And so that's why I was saying this is going to be so biased, because I'm on the side, I just am on the side where I believe in it, and I believe in using my privilege to get against it. But if you don't believe in it, then you're not going to agree with me. But I'm just going to give you the facts that I know to be true. And I think the same thing's going to be when we talk about institutionalized racism. But I think point to really more concrete facts on it to try and I mean convince is a bad word, but I want to give the facts that I know, so that you guys can be as educated as possible on it, and you guys can use whatever privileges that you have to speak out against it, because it's so easy for me to be like, oh, well, it doesn't affect me, and this is too much for me to think about, and I just don't want to think about it, so I'm not gonna. But in reality, Black people don't have that option, and people of color don't have that option to not think about it because they're the ones that are being killed.
Well, I think it's easy to overlook, like when it's not
is.
someone dying or something
Yeah.
like that, right? It's easy for the majority to say things don't exist because we don't experience them.
Right.
But if we can bring up some of the things that do exist as institutional racism, and we can have a conversation as
like
a group about, well, which populations might this negatively impact, and who does this benefit, and
Yeah.
how did this come about? That might be a good place to go, even just to inform future voting and future decision making and companies
Totally.
you might want to work for. And
Or you know, a lot of this is I hadn't heard a lot of this until I went to college. I mean, I grew up in such like a white area with a little bubble, and there's a lot of this that I just didn't know about. And so I want to make sure that you guys have all the information possible, because it wasn't when I was your age, I had no idea. So yeah, I like that idea. I think I'm going to get some stuff together on that, and I'll get some statistics and there's a lot of charts and graphs that we can look at that really show you the difference in the way that Black people and people of color are treated compared to white people in a lot of ways, not just with police brutality, with employment and schooling and wages and all that. So I really like that idea, Brandy. I think we'll do that.
I like that. I love to talk about that
Cool.
topic. So I'm happy to
It'll
be
be
part of
Wednesday
it,
next week.
especially when we get, I'll be gone, but
You will be gone. I'll record it though.
okay. And then we can try to bring up a topic every now and then when I get back and we're in person.
I like
Because
that.
I think they're
Where you
easier to
going?
have. I'm going to go visit my friend in North Carolina.
Ooh. Well, be safe. I hope
It's
you
a
have
family
fun.
vacation. I think we will have fun. I mean, it's me and my husband and my daughter, and then her and her partner and their two kids. So, and they're the same age as mine, so it should be fun. We're just
Yeah.
taking advantage of the COVID airline.
I would. I did.
crisis.
Totally.
I did. There's no wrong with that.
Well, cool.
It's the only way we can afford to do it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
And we're splitting it halfway between both families.
There you go. That's the way to do it.
I think that this was a really good conversation. It's so hard and heavy and difficult to talk about, and that's the point. So even though it's uncomfortable and it's hard sometimes, please keep talking about it. Talk to your friends about it, talk to your family about it, share some of the stuff that we talked about today, and get opinions from other people. And it's a good conversation to have. It's important that we keep it up and we keep discussing issues like this. So thank you for listening and participating. You guys are awesome. These get really heavy sometimes. I wish we were in person. I think it'd be easier, but I appreciate your guys' opinions and sharing everything that you have.
Well, and I appreciate everyone who, especially you, Allie. I know you didn't want to stick through it, but I appreciate that you were able to hang in there and just at least listen to people's opinions and remain respectful. And I think all of you guys showed great maturity, and are amazing young adults in your ability to address this and have a conversation without it getting out of control.
Definitely. I like that.
Already, we've done better than most elected professionals could do.
That's a good point. I mean, they don't want to talk about it, that's for sure. So,
Yo.
Yes.
So I thought I was gonna get shot yesterday. The scariest thing happened to me. It wasn't really scary, but it was like, whoa. I was walking to the gas station to get like a soda, and this dude rolls up on me and asks me if I remember him from prison.
Is this Travis?
Yeah. And I was like, dude, I was like, I don't know about that. I've never been to prison, you know? And I felt like this little ass like white boy who was like, no, I've never been to prison. I don't know. In my head, I was laughing. I was just dying. But like, I was low key kind of nervous because like the way he rolled up on me, I was like, oh my God, this guy might shoot me. But he's ready to go to prison again for misplacing somebody. I was like, man, does this happen to like anyone else, or am I like the only one?
No, those
I
things.
was wondering.
It happens to people.
Yeah.
Other than you, not lots, but I've had it happen to others.
I get beat up by like drunk ladies for no reason. It's just, man, I have the